I just say that RichKarlgaard is one of my favorite people in the whole world? He organized 15 years ago all the predictions, and if you go back and you look at what they said, they are the original source of cloud computing, mobile computing, and the architecture we use today.
He's recognized as a thought leader, an economic and market forecaster.
Rich is not only the publisher of Forbes, but of a great book called The Soft Edge, Great Companies Looking for Lasting Success.
There are people of latent skills out there that because they didn't test well at age 16 or 17, might not have gone to the right school, might have made a couple of career mistakes, that suddenly they find themselves and there's this enormous talent to be tapped. And they neither have the confidence, and society doesn't realize that there's not this process of discovery.
A CEO of a $40 billion publicly traded company, whom I shall not name because it was, he said it in confidence.
What the initials are?
He said,
First Boehner, then McCarthy, now chaos. But some here say this conservative revolt in the House is actually going to be good for taxpayers. Are they right?
It's good because McCarthy would have been a disaster. We know already that he can't communicate very well, and that brings up the point. You have to have people who can articulate why this matters to the American people and connect it to economic growth.
Steve Forbes hired me in 1992 to start a futurist magazine called Forbes ASAP. In 1998, Steve promoted me to publisher of Forbes magazine and asked me to write a regular column on innovation. Recently, I spoke to the board of directors and top managers of Singapore's big sovereign wealth fund, Temasek. They invited me to speak about the Big Seven, 4 megatrends and 3 best practices that are shaping our future. But I knew that in order to win the trust of this very sophisticated audience, which included Ho Ching, Temasek's CEO and wife of Singapore's Prime Minister, I had to put my futuristic speech into the context of today's extremely volatile global financial markets. That's because political and financial volatility is the present-day climate that Temasek and all global funds now face. I recently spoke to the top 1,000 executives at Microsoft. The COO, Kevin Turner, wanted me to talk about my book, The Soft Edge, and how to create a healthy and innovative culture for the long run.
The book, the messages, the themes that you're going to hear about, I think really resonated with me even stronger than many of the wonderful programs we've had over the last 10 years.
He hoped my talk would support a top goal of Microsoft's new CEO, Satya Nadella, which is to reshape the Microsoft culture, make it more innovative, and take more risk. We had a perfect match.
Now, the game-changing idea in the first 40 years of Microsoft was, wait for it, software has value. And probably most of you have seen this letter that Bill Gates wrote to the Homebrew Computer Club in Silicon Valley in Menlo Park in 1976. And in the letter he said, hardware must be paid for, but software is something to share. Now, you and I know that Bill Gates has a highly developed sense of sarcasm. Am I not right about that? And he is speaking with this Bill Gates sarcastic voice. Hardware must be paid for, but software is something to share. And then he lays it down. Is that fair? That was really the big idea that has created this $90 billion revenue global juggernaut today, was that software has value. It's not an adjunct of hardware. It's not something you can take for granted. The game-changing idea for the next 40 years I'm going to submit today is that culture has value. Now, this has always been true. Tom Peters and Bob Waterman wrote In Search of Excellence in 1982 that made the point very, very obviously clear. Good to Great, Jim Collins' book, 20 years later, makes that point very, very clear. The great Peter Drucker, whom Satya sometimes quotes as culture eats strategy for breakfast. So why then would culture be a revolutionary idea in 2015 when so many have said the same idea in so many different ways over time? Well, the answer is because today we live in an era of what I would call hyper-analytics. And what you can measure people do. In fact, all good companies measure ceaselessly and look at the data without bias and follow what the data says. So what the danger here is that long-term cultural message about the importance of culture is going to be overwhelmed by the data and analytics side. It's not that the data and analytics side should step aside and let culture assert itself. Culture needs to do the work of coming up. If you parse away what Steve Jobs was saying about taste, and he didn't say this, but this is what you parse out, is he was talking about products and services that appeal simultaneously to people's intellectual side and their emotional side. That great products have a way of doing both at the same time. It's often the mistake of technology companies, particularly in B2B, to think that if you appeal to people's intellectual side, that will sell the products. And paradoxically, what you do, if all you do is appeal to people's intellectual side, is you train the customer to ask more questions and delay the purchase. You've made them smart, but now they want to be smarter about the product. It's hard to get them off the dime. You need that emotional kicker to get them off the dime. But conversely, if all you do is appeal to people's emotional sides, you will burn them out over time. The really enduring products and services are able to do both. This is what taste is when you parse everything away. It's beauty, it's brains, and it's a little bit of wonder. Like, how the heck did they do that? See, I think today we are living in a period of such rapid commoditization for nearly any product or service that if you don't have that beauty, it could be just an elegant way that you serve your customer, an elegant way that you present your B2B product. If you don't make the customer feel really proud that they're smart, that they're dealing with you and not the other people, and if you don't have just that little bit of wonder, then you kind of fall into this commodity vortex where no one wants to be.
All right, did you enjoy this?